Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel and another video. Let's play the intro and let's get right into it because we probably don't want to talk about this as much as what we've been talking about for the rest of this season. Yes, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel and another video. And joining us live is Sophie from the Highbury Squad. Sophie.
Hello, how are you? I was just putting a note out to the squaddies on the Highbury Squad community page, see if any of them are around. How's it going, James?
Very well. This has been a long time coming. Apologies that the channel's been around for so long, but we've never got you here. Apologies that we couldn't get you here in better circumstances. I do pick my times.
Yeah, well, it is pretty painful being an Arsenal fan right now, isn't it? Oh, I look like I'm lagging, but yeah, it's there are times where you love being a content creator, and then there are times where it's really challenging to be a content creator, which is why I always like to have a little bit of diversity outside of predictions, post-game shows, tactics, to kind of keep football conversations going. But I haven't felt this kind of dejected since before the improbable season, before the 2022-23 season. So yeah, we're still in the Champions League, and I know everyone's gonna, talk about a whole bunch of positive things. But right now, as a fan, aside from being a channel host, I feel a little bit dejected.
Yeah, and do you know what, Sophie? There's so many people who I've gone to games with throughout the years, and they've been there. I've even had my dad say to me, he said to me the other day, I've been going since Gunnosaurus was real. Before he was a mascot. That's how long I've been going. And he said I've got no enjoyment anymore. He said it's completely just beaten out of me. And do you know what? I think sometimes in life, I think when you get so close, it makes it hurt that bit more, doesn't it? I mean, if you're used to being like we were, eighth and eighth, then the expectation level is in the floor. And then I know that they said we were ahead of schedule and what have you, but I think now obviously we're 2 seasons in, and you've seen the quality of what's around us somewhat diminish. I know a lot of people have said with this league currently, they think it's one of the worst seasons, and I know a lot of people say that's very easy coming from you as an Arsenal fan now that you're pretty much out of it. But I think if you look at it, really, there's no title race, and it's February. Relegation's pretty much confirmed, and it's February. Other than 4th to 9th for that Champions League, which is quite interesting. And other than really Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, you've got no other sort of story. You've got no other sort of team that's, you're very much big like me on the narrative, but there's very limited real story, not just from an Arsenal side, but an overall footballing side this season, due to the fact that obviously one of the big hitters has obviously collapsed in Man City, but then Arsenal as well. And my whole thing that I always said, I mean, I think you were the same as me, so do correct me if I'm wrong. At the start of the season, the expectation was obviously to win it, but if you weren't going to win it, at least challenge for it like we did last season to the final day. If you can't win it, at least make the other team win it. And I feel that's diminished now. I think, they're probably going to have this wrapped up in maybe 3, maybe 4 games time.
Bang on with everything that you said. I mentioned on Highbury Squad maybe 2 months ago, maybe a bit longer, that I felt the quality in the Premier League this year overall was poor compared to other seasons. I don't think we've seen too many great games. I don't think we've seen an abundance of great goals. I think the narrative has mostly been dominated by VAR and refs, which should never be the story. I think the bright spark has been watching a great player like Mo Salah play, albeit we don't like Liverpool. You've got to hand it to him. He's been absolutely sensational. And Nottingham Forest story, albeit we hope that continues to end tomorrow after they got beaten by Newcastle 4-3, has been refreshing. Teams like Bournemouth, Brentford, refreshing. You know, Bournemouth's manager, refreshing. The approach, the way they play the game, refreshing. At the three teams that have come up, oh my goodness, they are absolute dog shite.
Yeah.
And
You'd have
that,
thought after Company last season that another manager wouldn't go, do you know what? I can play how I played in the division below. I looked at Martin at Southampton and thought, there's going to be a game where it finally clicks for you that you can't do this. And no,
right.
like fair play, stuck to his guns, but I'm like, you're going to get yourself sacked, mate. Like you
Yeah,
really are.
exactly.
He couldn't have been too miserable. He ended up with Lucy Pinder halfway through the season, so he's obviously with her at the. I think most men would be happy if they got sacked and they had Lucy Pinder to go home with. But at the same point, you know, I was
Well,
very much like, I don't understand how you can believe you can play this way in a division above where you've really, other than Aaron Ramsdale, you haven't really strengthened. You haven't, you've still got championship-esque players.
I feel bad for Aaron. And, it's the same thing. By the way, this is why Tottenham and Manchester United are lucky, because any other season, they're in a total relegation fight, but they're not. They're really not. Those three teams aren't going to win too many games. And it's a little bit like Amorim, where you're talking about Russell Martin, is naivety, right? In terms of how you play. So if you're a hoodie tracksuit wearing person, which majority of us are during the day, that's cool. But then you have to go to a black tie event and you still want to wear the hoodie, and the tracksuit, and it just doesn't fit, but you have to adapt to your environment. So you're going to go rent a tux or a, LBD, and you're going to put on your stilettos and your brogue shoes, and you're going to go to the black tie event. And Russell Martin and Amorim, they still want to wear their hoodie when they're at the black tie event. There's nothing more glorious, though, a silver lining in the season, in seeing the continual demise of Manchester United. Like, that is fun to watch because we've suffered at their hands for so many seasons. We've been the dartboard, we've been ridiculed. We had that amazing rivalry, but to see where they're at right now is very pleasurable. But maybe our manager has also suffered from some naivety again this season, where we felt that he had gotten to the black tie event dressed well, but, maybe doesn't really know how to eat some canapes because of how they're served. And I think that the comparison there is Mikel has not found a way, and I'm sure you'll get onto this, but I know we've had injuries, I know we've had bad decisions go against us, but how is it we haven't been able to combat the defensive approach to us, especially at home, or as the kids like to call it today, the low block? He's not found ways to combat that. And I think that's an issue. And I think it's okay to criticize that, James, because by this stage, he should have figured that part out.
And I mean, it's not like, he hasn't shown signs, because this is the thing. A lot of people listen to what I do here, and obviously with Purely Arsenal and yourself and Arsenal Above All and all the other shows that I go on. And I'm not trying to taint all the fans, a bit like how I was with you last night. I'm not trying to taint all these fans with one brush, but they think if you dare mention one thing, then that's it. You're Arteta. He can't. He's shown. Let's get it right. When he first come in, okay, that squad was abysmal. I've never in my 30-year of supporting Arsenal have I ever had a team where I'm like, you know what? A majority of these players I don't like. Like I don't like them as football. I don't
It was
like them
okay
as
when he won the FA Cup with them, though, wasn't it?
Sure, but this is it. I'm like, I don't like them as footballers, and I don't like them as people. I just don't. They don't come across as what I would say Arsenal men, quote unquote. I feel like they're just here for the pay ride and for whatever paycheck, sorry, and for the ride of whatever goes along until they can. And we saw that. We had to pay people to leave. Arsenal Football Club, my background here of the, of Highbury, of the East Stand, and what have you. What you have to be paid to leave. We're giving you money to go. You should be honoured to be there. It's just all of this, but he showed that he can adapt because he played a 5 at the back system, and he won us a trophy. And now, like you've said, this team's, especially like we look at the weekend with West Ham, they were like, "This is a serious game. We're having a terrible season. I'm still a new manager that hasn't really got anything." But they're trying to force a rivalry about Declan Rice. Let's get it right. Arsenal and West Ham have never been rivals. They're trying to create something that isn't there. A bit like what Newcastle have done as well. It's a bit cringe, but there we go. Arsenal do a lot of things that are cringe. I'll hold my hands up and say that. We're pretty, we're one of the cringiest fan bases in the league. However, at the same time, I'm like, you don't adapt. Why do you still in your head think that there's going to be every team that rocks up at Arsenal are going to play, your style of game? And it's coming up to 6 years, nearly 7th season in. And he's shown the adaptation before. I'm not saying at the weekend, let's go 5 at the back and match him up. I'm not saying that at all. But like you said, there's nothing. There's no consideration of what to do. And I think a lot of that as well has stemmed from the beginning of this season, where the style for me has gone from we go to Dubai last year, we come back, everyone looks refreshed, and we're just slapping people for fun. Other than that Villa game, everybody got a pasting. And we're all sat there going, oh, blimey, right, okay, add to this in the summer, rock up next season, and let's slap everybody again. But it's gone from slapping to this control,
sleeping.
And then if we get
slapping to sleeping.
If we get something, it's not let's keep going. It's shut it, breathe, control, calm. And I don't understand it because I'm like, you can't play on the back foot, Mikel. The whole time you've been here, we're not good on the back foot. So keep going. I'm like, if we get hit on the break, but we're 2 or 3 up, doesn't matter really. But we don't even go to we don't go 2 or 3 up. We just stand. And this Dubai thing as well, dare I say it, we've come back, we look worse. They look more tired. They've had less games, but they look more tired. And I'm like, is this because you run them too hard in Dubai? Or is it that they know it's over other than Europe? I'm like, there is a complete hangover there with that squad. What do you think it is? Because I can't, this is the $1 million question. If we can find out what it is, we'd be doing better than sitting here. But I can't put my finger on it, Sophie.
It's funny how the Dubai trip last season was the instigator to go on this incredible run. 14 wins, I think it was, right? James, you can correct me. And I said at the start of the season, I've said it whenever I've been on other shows or whether I'm doing TalkSport or whatever, Arsenal will only be measured in, well, let me rephrase that. Our success will boil down to our mental strength, because we've shown in the 22, 23, 24, 25, no, other way around. You know what seasons I'm talking about, the last 2 seasons, that we have the talent, we've had the blueprint. We actually became a blueprint for other teams in terms of how to play. And we've gone from that to playing a possession-based game, which is the new obsession. possession obsession in modern day football, playing out the back. We've seen that, and everyone's obsessed with that. Even teams that can't do it, do it. And we've gone from, playing aggressive football, being 3-0 up at halftime against teams, dominating, winning, being so assured as well as fans. We kind of shifted our culture and our thinking. We're like, wow, this is done. The confidence, right? It's spewed over everywhere. But Arsenal's Achilles heel is mental. It has been for years. And we've gone from kind of being a cup team and winning the FA Cups that kept Wenger in his job a little bit longer, Mikel Arteta winning the cup and carrying on that tradition on from Wenger, Emery, spewing into like players that were around for a little bit of time, winning that as well, to then actually becoming a Premier League competitive team and now becoming a shit kind of cup running team. But all of the same for me connects all of it. And Arsenal's mentality has evolved. But when we're under the spotlight, when we're under the pressure, when everything is building, we don't have the answers. We didn't have it in the improbable season. And I know everyone will go to like, well, when you've got Rob Holding replacing Saliba at Tottenham and losing that, fine. Be prepared for that then. Be prepared for injuries. Last season, let's be honest, you do what you have to do. You get 4 points off City. You get 4 points off Liverpool. You show your mentality. But then you lose to West Ham. You drop points to Fulham. You lose twice to Aston Villa. Champions don't do that. They just don't. And I feel like, not that we've become institutionalized from mental impotence, but there's definitely something to be said about, do these players really believe that they were in with a shot? Now, adversity, 2-0 down at home against Newcastle in the League Cup. I don't care how you lose. Lose with pride, lose with fight, lose with dignity, lose with throwing the kitchen sink at the game. That was pathetic when we went up there. That game was finished. And against West Ham, Liverpool giving you a lifeline. Do you really believe? And I said this to Tom and he kind of disagreed with me like a couple months ago. And I go, I don't see the belief in their eyes this season. The last 2 seasons I've seen it because it's been kind of infused on me. It's been infectious. The fans feel it. There's this belief. There's this passion. There's all of it. They didn't believe. They didn't show up against West Ham. The mental conditioning of these teams has been a little bit of a pandemic for Arsenal over the years. And I don't know if it's like a complacency issue, because remember when Adu went in and he got his job at the very beginning and he said, I couldn't believe that this was the club, this was the mentality, this was the culture. Everyone was complacent, everyone was happy with where they were at, and I wanted to change that. And he's a winner. He won it all. And so I think there's this mentality issue. Like, you need players to pick you up in games. Who's doing that? Right? You can't rely on 17-year-olds to do that now. You cannot do that again. You did it to Saka, you did it to Emile Smith-Rowe, you did it to Fabregas, you did it to Jack Wilshere. And here we are repeating. Gabriel, Big Gabby is probably the only guy that has really, truly tried to put this team on his shoulders this season. So once again, in adversity, how do we handle things? I asked Clive Palmer, I asked Charles Watts, I asked Tom, I asked Harry, I asked Lee, I asked Dan, I asked you. The question, has Mikel Arteta evolved in adversity as a manager? And I'm not sure he has.
Yeah. I mean, if I can throw another question at you, which I find that I'm starting to learn. Again, referencing father here. He says to me, and he said this to me for so long. He's like, there'll come a time in your life, son, when you watch Arsenal, and he's like, when they line up and the Premier League music's playing, or Fatboy Slim, or even this North London Forever. And he
That
went, and
boy Slim.
he said, you'll see him in the eyes. He said, you'll see the eyes. And he said, before a ball's kicked, you'll go, losing today. And whenever
Mhm.
my dad does it, he's never wrong. And do you know what? I looked at him on Saturday and I went, you're bricking it. You're all bricking it. Other than, like you said, other than really Gabriel and Nanweri. I mean, Nanweri's blank anyway. I don't know if the guys. I don't even think I've seen him smile all season, and he's having a season. He's a fantastic, fantastic footballer.
Mhm.
But do you get the same feeling? Can you tell just by looking at them
Yeah,
as
that
well?
goes back to kind of what I was saying about
Yeah,
believing in them the last 2 seasons, because I saw that they believed. There was a different energy. I don't feel that. And this is where I don't accept but the injuries.
mm,
Saka was injured on December 21st. The season started in August.
mm,
Odegaard was injured in the international break in September or October, right? Um, Saliba was out for a red card. We lost Havertz and Martinelli. Havertz after in Dubai, Martinelli a little bit beforehand. Let's just take August to December. Small sample of the season. August to September 1, October 2, 3 months, 3.5 months. Other than the Manchester City game and the Liverpool game we should have won at home, I'm struggling to think of a performance that blew my socks off. I'm struggling to think of David Raya saved us early on in the season. Thomas Partey was pretty decent. Big Gabby's been consistent.
Was Lisbon away in that?
Yes. But
Or was it a bit late? Was that December time? I can't remember.
that was Lisbon away was November, December?
Yeah, yeah. So it was
Yeah.
probably late. Yeah, because that one I did generally go, oh wow, because like I said earlier,
Yeah.
it was the slapping. I thought, oh, I've got my football back. Here we
Yeah,
go.
but the point is that you can't do that on a consistent
No,
basis.
yeah,
You beat Manchester City 5-1 and you send a message to the league. What, did you spend all of your energy coupons on that game? Champions repeat that. They keep going. They don't drop points against West Ham at home. And one of the worst West Ham teams positionally in the league for quite some time. Say what you want about David Moyes, but he kept them consistent for a while.
yeah. I believe they said at the weekend, and I couldn't believe it when they said it. They've conceded the same amount of goals this season as the amount that they got relegated with Glenn Roeder, and they said it's February.
Yeah.
So they're like
And
their
they
league
haven't
keep.
and their
Yeah,
goal scoring has been really
yeah,
poor.
yeah.
So, the Dubai thing, I kind of don't want to sound like a broken record, but I felt like because we talked about Kai Havertz, he looked absolutely spent, didn't he? And after the Wolves game, Charles Watts was saying that he was sitting in the press box and he looked at Kai Havertz and he thought, my God, that guy looks dead. Absolutely. He needed help coming off the pitch. So you go to Dubai and you're tough training him. He's an experienced player. He's played at the highest level in the biggest games. You know what Kai Havertz can do. He should have been around the pool, sitting on his towel, drinking a pina colada. What's the point in going to Dubai if you're just going to remember the temperature there's different. So now they're
Oh God,
adapting
yeah.
to the kind of atmosphere and the environment as well. And this is the season where I feel like it's okay to put Mikel under the microscope a little bit. How have you managed the players? Why is Kai Havertz still on the pitch after we've been bitch slapped by Newcastle home and away? Why is Saka still playing in Europe when we're like 3-0 up? Why does Saka have a hammy? Why is Havertz? Why is Martinelli? Why did two of our most important players have to have operations, with their hamstring? And they're all to blame. They're all culpable for the position that we're in, because now you're relying. And I'm sorry, how unfair is it on Mikel Merino, a new signing, to be put under the microscope like this? Whether you like the signing or not, whether you think he's been a good midfielder, how unfair is it to set him up to fail like this and expect him to be your number 9? There was a point in that game at the weekend where I felt sad. Like, this is Arsenal. And we're relying on Mikel Merino to be like the number 9. We're relying on a 17 and an 18-year-old to bail us out. Meanwhile, so many players are hiding in the shadows. I compliment players for playing in the shadows and doing really good work. There's an example, I think it's Trossard, where he has the ball on the left flank and Odegaard could just burst down the middle and make a run and receive the ball from Trossard, and instead he dodges and goes to the right.
Yeah, I've seen people try and defend this, Sophie, by saying, "Oh, he's doing this to drag people away from
No,
them."
he's not.
That's what I said. I said, "Behave yourself."
And I'm the biggest Martin Odegaard fan, right?
Yeah.
That's simple football. That's my AYSO team. Run through the middle, make yourself immediately available. And the space was there. He didn't have to drag anyone out because the space was there, James.
Sophie, he's clean through. If he carries on, if he's straight, he's clean through. It was like the space that Calafiori awarded Wan-Bissaka. I'm like, he has got freedom of the centre of the pitch. And he shirked responsibility and went round. Yeah, 100%.
So it's those things that are glaring this season. And I'm sorry, but if you don't have backup for Kai Havertz, that's on you guys. You know, Tomiyasu, people keep factoring him in. I'm like, stop it. Why are you factoring him in? To what? For what reason? Right? Calafiori, you knew he had a massive injury before you bought him, but you still bought him. That's on you. Right? So if he's going to tweak here and tweak there, that's on you. Even Benjamin White, he had to have surgery. He's played a lot of football, right? That no cover for what, you know, not trusting Kivior, but being forced to play him when one of your centre backs goes out. That's your player. You bought him. That's on you. Midfield. Why isn't Jorginho played more this season? Why? You know, in certain games, he certainly could. In the Champions League, I think he's been good value. And it just seems like a bit of a mismanaged mess this season. And the hierarchy are culpable for this, as is Mikel Arteta.
Exactly. And that's what I've tried to say as well. I think a lot of people think that, you know, you're only being visceral one way towards Mikel Arteta. And I'm like, no, I think all of them. I saw a comment that you made on the show last night, and you said that you want all the difference of opinions because at the end of the year, you're doing your own Arsenal audit. And I'm like, yeah, I think everyone needs to do one. As much as us as fans are doing one, they definitely need to do one. And that's why, obviously, this appointment of the sporting director is so huge. And I still don't understand why that's not being a priority numero uno now. I'm like, you need this announcement ASAP, because whoever comes in there has got to have something about them. Because I think a lot of them, I talked about the team slapping people. I think this man, you know, don't do a Ratcliffe and take everybody's food away and all the ketchup and all that away. But they definitely, you know, let's not get super mean. But I definitely think some heads have got to be knocked together, because to go into this how you have is unacceptable. And you said earlier about the confidence thing. I've never again in the whole time that I've supported Arsenal seen a player go, oh yeah, we need reinforcements. I've seen managers say it, but Declan Rice, after that Champions League game, he's there on TNT Sport and he's going, yeah, well, we'd love a striker to come in. We definitely, you know, Kai Havertz can't do this all in. And I'm like, that's a player. So they all talk, Sophie, and as much as we're feeling it, they're feeling it even more. Do you not think mentally wise, sorry, just quick, do you not think that they go, you did nothing in the window, so if you don't care, I guess if you're not taking it seriously, Why should I? And I'm not saying they're downing tools deliberately. I don't believe, I don't believe we're like Man United where they get managers sacked. I don't believe that I think a majority of these players have been signed or renewed under this manager. So I think they owe him a lot and they love him per se. But do you not think a lot of them did look at it and go, well, I guess that's that then? Because if you're not good, if it's not serious for you, it's not serious for me.
Kevin would probably say to you, no way. You're a professional footballer.
Yeah,
You play.
yes,
He'd probably rip you right now,
I want him to. I want him to.
but you would have a comeback. I don't know if these players are like that. Maybe I look at it a little bit differently because I think Mikel Arteta is ruthless like that. Isn't it funny how when things weren't going well at the weekend against West Ham, it was Declan Rice that was subbed? Strange that, isn't it?
I think he got emotionally sucked in. I think, like I said earlier, they're trying to create something that isn't there. They're singing chants about his misses again, which is bang out of order. I know that I understand lad culture and football banter to some set, but I'm like, when you're just being a prick, like, come on. And I'm like, but then again, I'm like, you are in the spotlight. You are £105 million player. You might need. I don't like saying it because it feels like I'm being really nasty. But do you need thicker skin there, Sophie?
You know what? This really annoys me.
The players we're brought up on, they'd brush that off, wouldn't they? And I think he took it really to heart because his performance indicated that he was slightly rattled to me, and that's why he got taken off. I think he just was having such a poor game, and Arteta could see, he sees way more than even I can see. But I think he was like, "You ain't coping, so I'll save you for another day," per se. But then you take off your best set piece taker, one of your best creative outlets, a pressing machine when we're not pressing. Do you know what I mean? I think cut your nose off to spite your face per se, but I didn't disagree with him coming off because I thought he was having such a bad game, Sophie.
George Graham would have kept him in the game and let him figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
You're probably right. Yeah.
You talk about players we grew up watching, like whether it's Arsenal. Think about David Beckham. The shit that used to get sung about that guy. Did he let it bother him on the pitch? No, did he? Heck. It bothered him, of course, hearing things being said about his wife, but you never knew that the way he played because it gave him the fuel and the determination to prove. How many times did we see Bex do this? I'm a little bothered by weak sauce players in the modern game.
We've spoke about this a long time. We've spoke about the sauce for many a year.
I mean, there's saucy stuff when players score good goals, like you love to say, but this weak sauce mentality. Someone posted something, James, who's been on our show a couple times. You got to back off. Oh, something about Calafiori. He's only 22. I go, 22's a man. He's a man. When are we going to stop mollycoddling our players? The only two players that deserve a little bit of bubble wrap right now are Waneri and Lewis Skelly. All of the other players, he played at the Euros for Italy. You think the Italian fans are giving any empathy? No. You're a grown man playing for Arsenal Football Club. I'm so sick of not being able to, this critique, or now players also have comments on this post have been limited. I get it. There's idiots on social, but the majority of fans are really good fans, right? People are going to sing what they want in stadiums. I'm sorry, that's football culture. You have to deal with it. You're a professional footballer. Is it right? No. But is it part of the football culture? Yes. Is it the best part of football culture? Absolutely not. But for me, there's this thing about Arsenal. I really felt like these players were the players, and I don't want to rag on the players because I think Big Gabby's mentally a beast. I think Jorginho mentally is like super tough. I think that Benjamin White has a very strong mentality. I really do. I think David Raya has a really good mentality. But when you start talking about 22-year-old players, give them time and whatever, are you joking? Look at Miles Lewis-Skelly. He's 18. He's a baller. He knows. He gets stuck in. He's putting himself out there. Yes, he got a red card, but he's not hiding. Like, when are we going to stop this nonsense? Seriously. Like, don't abuse Kai Havertz's wife in a disgusting, despicable, unforgivable, disgraceful manner. We're not talking about that. We're talking about being engaged mentally in a game, performing, playing. You're in a team. You've been chosen by the manager. You're playing for Arsenal Football Club. You've got to have it here. And we don't. We still don't.
Yeah, and like you said about Lewis Skelly and Wary, that you give them some grace because of their age, but these are the ones that are showing that they're more mentally superior than the experience. The international caliber. We've not just got a club captain here. We've got multiple international captains. Zinchenko captains his country. Jorginho, when he's picked, captains Italy. Odegaard, Norway. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But yeah, the two kids are levels above, not just performing, but mental. There's been times where I've seen Lewis Skelly and he's organising, and I'm like, he's just, this isn't even his natural position. I mean, like you said earlier, Moreno, bless him, he's not even developed as the 8. But it's like, too late now. Go be my. You haven't played there since you were 8 years old. But please, save my season, pretty much, Mikel.
I find it negligible that that's happened.
Oh God, yeah. Sophie, in January, this thing with Watkins, I know I've seen so many things lately about, it was a fluff to keep Arsenal fans, to make them look like they were trying something. I don't believe that for a second. However, that second bid for the 60 million, now we don't know for a fact Aston Villa would have taken it, and it looks as though, and Mike's in the chat. Hiya, Mike. He's Arsenal above all there. He said that he reckons that Villa did that to play Arsenal like a fiddle, so that the Duran thing got sped up quicker to Saudi. Which I'm like, I don't disagree with that. I think he's probably spot on. So, but you don't know whether they would have taken it or not. But I think that bid wasn't made because, and it's like it's been reported, and this irks me so much, Sophie. The resale value on a player that's 29. I'm like,
yeah, it's beans.
Do you want to win a league? Who cares what we're going to get? If we won the Premier League this season and done well in Europe and maybe even got close to winning that as well, do you think in a few years' time, if we sold Watkins when he's like 32, 33 for 10 million to probably Brentford where he come through or whatever again, do you think fans would care? They'd go, no, do you know what? That guy come in January and won us a Premier League. Do you remember that?
Well, also they'd recoup all the ancillary sponsorships, collabs, what comes with winning the Premier League monetarily and stuff like that. I was told
he's a boyhood Arsenal fan, Sophie.
Yeah.
Who literally has a photo of him with a 14 Thierry Henry on his wall. What shirt's up for grabs at Arsenal when Nketiah got sold in the summer? Number 14. Yeah. I mean, Arsenal not having the 10 and the 14 shirt filled for me is a bit blasphemous. I think that's nuts in its own right. 10 and 14 are blank at Arsenal. Blank.
I can't remember who I said that to, but I was like, I think I was asking Tom, it's crazy to think that those two shirts are up for grabs.
There's statues outside of two players that wore those shirts, but nobody wears them now. And I know maybe those shirts are too heavy, but at the same point, I'm like, optics-wise, this is shocking.
Yeah, very. And, it's interesting you mentioned the Watkins thing because I've asked people, and Charles Watts was of the volition that Mikel wanted him. The bid was made. Sammy Mockbell confirmed that on our show as well, that 40 million bid. But Charles Watts felt like Mikel wanted him, but the club did not want to pay the 60. And, here we are. Whether or not that's 100% accurate, I think Mikel probably felt like after losing those 3 players, had to concede that he needs a striker. He's had 5 years to sign one, and he hasn't. And the Cronkies don't pick the players. They don't pick Mikel Merino and Calafiori. They don't pick Declan Rice. They just make the money available, sanction it. So the game that annoyed me the most, and I think which is why I'm feeling a little bit dejected today, is watching Aston Villa play the other night. We're such snobs, right? We think Rashford is beneath us. We thought like Asensio's beneath us. And they combined for 2 goals.
Yeah.
And he scored 2, right? Rashford's attitude, it's all about culture. It's all about, maybe he was in the wrong environment for a number of years and he's made some really bad decisions. He's a young player. Go ahead and kill him. I don't agree with his behavior. I think, skipping training and going to Northern Ireland and going to a club and whatever. But why was he doing it? He was allowed to. He got away with it. It was in the totally wrong environment. Players do that when they know they can get away with it. They think they're bigger than the club. But he's also humble enough to put his tail between his legs and say, I've got to get out of here and save my career. And Emery, right, who's probably a really good manager to go to, he's accepted being on the bench, comes on, contributes to Aston Villa's win, and the other January transfer gets 2 goals. We're so snobby. We have to wait for Sesko. We have to wait for, Gyökeres, or we have to wait. Not that Gyökeres is ever really in our periphery. I think that's all just nonsense. Maybe we've been interested.
Yeah, sadly.
But we have to like have the perfect, and that I believe is down to Mikel. And so when we went down 3 forwards, our strike force, not forwards, but you know what I'm saying. I think they got so desperate that maybe, James, the narrative that isn't really being discussed is we're not going to give you that money because you didn't really want him. We could have signed him 2 seasons ago, but now you want him because we're desperate, and Arsenal don't do desperate anymore. Sterling is another thing, right? That was a bit desperate. Okay, that was thrown at the very end. But again, because he'd worked with Sterling before, maybe he thought that he could convert him, so he bought into that idea. But no one's asking that question. Have the Cronkies decided that maybe we've given you too much, we've given you a lot, we're not going to throw 60 million at a 29-year-old player in January. We're going to wait to see how the season goes. And in the summer, we'll decide and see kind of what money is spent. The numbers look good for Arsenal to spend around 150 million. It's not going to be 300 million. Talked about this with Tom, and he's like, maybe 150 million. 150 million can buy you 2 or 3 really good players, right? If you're smart. So have they started questioning him and his choices? Why can't we throw that question out there? Why? Otherwise, you're giving that money. If you want to win the title, if you believe that you can win the title, you're freaking spending that money. Any other club would spend that money. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to say because I look at it and say definitely in the summer there was a whole of let's wait a sec here. You've got to recoup a bit. You've got to bring some money in order to re-spend, or because we've done a huge outlay in the last summer. And obviously the sale of Smith Rowe and Nketiah, I think in terms of us that have normally, I'm the first one to batter Arsenal for how poor they are at selling. I feel that we both, to get 35 for Nketiah and then what was it, 35 again for Smith Rowe?
Yeah, it's got good money.
They're 2 good deals. They're 2 good deals in my opinion. So I can't slate the club for that. But I look at it and I think in January they may have said to him about like same aspects and line of what you've said. However, all the articles from good people that I trust, I know there's a lot of people within that Arsenal journalistic community that, you can tell per se that they're saying the right thing because they want that Singapore invitation in the summer. They don't want to rock that boat. You know, they want the green pass. Well, I won't mention names, but we know who they are. We don't need to. And I think they might have gone, if you really want him, that eats into what you want in the summer.
Yeah.
And I think, like you've said, he wants this. And again, mentioning Mike in the chat, because we have the WhatsApp group as a podcast. And we've all, I think Mike conned it first. He wants this unicorn-esque strike. You've got to hold up the ball. You've got to have pace. You've got to score. I'm like, you are looking for the most specific type of forward. It's gone from, can you put the ball into the net, to, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that as well? And I mean, I've watched Sesko and he looks like he's got, but again, it's another project striker. Whereas Watkins in January, from now to the end of the season, in all comps, he probably would have got you 12. I don't want to say 15 to 20. That feels a bit over exaggeration. 50, I would say 12 to 15 goals guaranteed Watkins would have scored for us. If we'd have signed him in Jan till the end of the season, he would have got us 15 to 20. I bet you he probably got injured in his first game, actually, knowing I like. But
Probably.
To me, I'm like, he's a guaranteed 15 to 20 goals. So I don't really understand this of where the club did it. I think if he digged his heels in enough, they'd have gave him it. Because like you mentioned it to me, and I was really amazed when you said it to me, that when you were in America and they were all on the bikes or something, you said,
yeah,
and then he come out and it just went, what was it? You could hear a mouse piss on cotton, I think was the phrase. Not your phrase, but that's
your
the
phrase.
people use.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if he's Al Pacino, Scarface, Don Corleone, whatever you want to call him, I think if he wanted it, they'd have done it. So that makes me think, did he have one eye on? And then again, it's a bit like today in the conference where they asked him about, do you think the league's gone or something? And he said, over my dead body. And I've seen people slate him for that. And I'm like, listen, if he come out there and went, yeah, it's done now, Sky would have done a 3-hour show about him being a bottler. You'd have had the usual suspects. He's a bottler. Sack him today because he's conceded the league already. So he can't. For me, I was like, I will say what I want to say about him here, but that to me, I'm like, he can't win either way. Because now you're going, oh, he's deluded because he thinks he can still win it. But then if he come out and went, nah, I've lost it, haven't I?
It doesn't matter what he says.
Yeah.
They'll always twist it. I mean, when I first heard it, I was like, oh God, talk about spin. That was as a fan, I was like, ugh. I almost felt insulted, if I'm being honest. Because I mean, where's all this talk been all season? I just haven't seen any bravado and fight and any of it. Mikel's probably been the one that's been fighting the most, to be honest with you, vocally. And players can only say so much because, that's just how they're trained. And I'm sure, I didn't hear the quote after that, but I'm sure he went on to say it's going to be tough and whatever. I didn't hear the full quote. But over my dead body, I just felt I could see why people went after him for that if they have. I don't agree with it, but it just feels like it feels, as a fan, I just feel like, oh, shut up. And I haven't felt that way about him in a really long time.
Yeah. Do you know what, Sophie? I don't watch them.
If you really
I will
cared
only watch
about
it when it's like lineup or injury stuff. The rest of it, I don't care.
I mean, if they really cared, right, they would have gotten reinforcements in the transfer window. If you really want to win the title, do you really think you can win the title with a squad? And it's on him. He likes a small squad. And people are defending him, saying Mikel wanted Mudryk, Mikel wanted this, Mikel wanted that. Mikel wanted whatever. Oh, but you guys were all killing Emery when Emery wanted Zaha and he got Pepe. And Emery wanted X and he got Y. And Mikel's been back to the hilt, right? He wanted Mikel Merino. He got him. Edu was not a fan. Tim Lewis did not want to pay.
Edu didn't want both those players. He didn't think the Calafiori signing or the Moreno signing was needed, Soph.
And I'm telling you, like, I'm not making this up because I'm not going to reveal. I'm telling you right now, Tim Lewis did not want to pay that kind of money for Mikel Merino. And everyone's coming for Tim Lewis, right? But someone has to be responsible for some of this. And, maybe they're looking at, well, hold on a second. You wanted to pay X for this guy, X for that guy. And the ROI just hasn't been there. So it's so funny. It's like when we win, Mikel is lauded. And when we lose, it's the owner's fault. It's Garlick's fault. Listen, they failed in the January transfer window. And I've been told it is not one person. It is 4 people that make a decision together. That's how it's rolled at Arsenal since Mikel Arteta's taken over. And good, it should be by committee, right? But it's not Arteta FC. It's Arsenal FC.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the way people try and, like, some of these that are part of it, it's bordering on cultish, but some of these, it's the way that they try and make you seem dumb by having your opinion. And it's like, well, hang on a sec, because you're retweeting these people that are talking about Jason Ato seriously considered for what he did in the window. And I'm like, well, hang on a sec here. Because to me, I'm like, what's he done? He's been really impressive. How?
As Edu's assistant.
Well, but I'm like, well, what did he do in January that was so impressive? Because
nothing.
Sophie, let's get it right. He didn't sign anybody. We didn't sell anyone. All of these young players that needed loans didn't really get loaned anywhere. I think the only one that's been loaned that is at somewhat of a level that we go, yeah, okay, that might help you develop is obviously Maldini at Bromley, I think it is he went to. Which again, that's got an Arsenal link to it because their manager is an ex-goalkeeping coach at Arsenal at youth level or something, I believe. So
James, the player that went to Monaco, was that permanent or a loan?
Yeah, he's permanent. Yeah, so we sold him to
in the summer, right?
In Austria or something.
Yeah.
And then they signed him. Yeah, and he's got 7 goals in 6 games or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. What? And Fabio Vieira, right? What? Quite honestly, why did we not recall him? Let's be honest. Yeah. What are we doing here? Right? We need. A lot of people want Odegaard dropped. I mean, in my opinion, barring 2 players, everyone deserves to be dropped right now.
I mean, for me, I need evidence that Fabio Vieira's eating solid food before I recall. If he's still,
I don't rate him at all, James. I don't. But if I'm not a fan.
If he's off to Cowan Gate, then I'll take him. I need to.
Arlie's Rusks.
I need to see him with a meal, and then I'll consider recalling him. If we took him to Dubai and he's with Salt Bay having the steaks, I'd be like, right, there you go. He's learnt now. We could have him. If he's back on protein and solid food, I'll take him.
See, when you start talking about players like that, I mean, we've had some whiffs. Right?
Well, there's this big rumor about Odegaard now being a vegan. And I don't want to go down that route. I don't like going into that route, but yeah.
I mean, I know there are a lot of athletes that are vegan that perform really well, but the transition might be tough. He hasn't looked, honestly, listen, I love that guy. I love that man. All right. People forget how mustard he was last season, and people were starting to compare him to Kevin De Bruyne and all that type of stuff. I think he was rushed back. We have this habit too, James. Tell me Martin Odegaard was ready to come back from his injury. We were desperate. We wanted to stay in the title race. I think we push our players too much. And let me tell you one thing. If this club rushes Bukayo Saka back from injury just because we're in a Champions League match against X, Y, or Z, no. or just to be able to like make sure we get top 4. You put him in this position, and people are like, I can hear people saying now, hamstrings happen. So that young man has played so much football. England are also culpable for playing him in nothing games, James, right? You rush him back, shame on you. And honestly, the same thing for Kai Havertz. They don't deserve it. They really don't. Liverpool are not going to drop that amount of points. People are like, well, if we still beat Liverpool and then they lose to X and Y, we still have to win all of our games without a striker, without 2 of our best players. Is that going to happen? What evidence have you seen this season that we're going to go on that kind of a run? We barely beat Leicester. We couldn't even beat West Ham at home. So if you rush that boy back, there'll be anarchy. He's the crown in the jewel. When people keep asking who's our best player, Saliba, Odegaard, it's Bukayo Saka. And shame on people that have actually asked for him to be replaced in the England team by Cole Palmer or Madueke, and talking about Anthony Gordon on the other side and are they better than Bukayo and whatever. Are you joking me? He's been the face of England.
Sophie,
He's
what's the
also
constant? What's the constant that you've just said? Who do they all get compared to? They all get compared to Bukayo.
yes.
You never go. They never go. Oh, is Anthony Gordon as good as Cole Palmer? Is Anthony Gordon as good as Phil
Right.
Foden? It's always how good are they compared to Saka?
You stumped me there for a minute. I'm like, what did I miss?
Yeah. No. Well, that's the thing. He is the barometer that they judge by with their silly little heads is Bukayo Saka, and I'm like,
Yeah.
because sadly he's I'm glad he plays for my team because he is levels above all of you.
He
But
really is.
one thing I will say, Sophie, many years ago, I was very lucky. It was the year that Leicester actually won the league. And I got invited through being on Guna Roundel actually with Giles and Akil.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think this is
That was a good show.
this is really back in the day. And we got invited to, I want to say it was something like Crystal Palace Sports Centre, something like this. And they had a big bus, and it was Arsenal, Tottenham, and Leicester fans. And they had Lineker there for them, Ledley King for Spurs, and Ian Wright for us. And it was all like a big day, and we all got to do things about who's going to win the title at the end of the season. It was all like a big fluff for Sky and TNT and all the channels and the news channels and everything. And Ian Wright spent a lot of time with us, obviously, Arsenal fans. And when he was done and he walked away, he was limping. And it looked bad. And me being me, I'm a quizzitive guy. I'm not shy. And I went, everything okay, Ian? And he said, oh, son, this is what I've had from my career. He went, 93, when we done the 2 cups, he said, I had injections because I wanted to win you guys something. And he said, this is what I get in late. But he said, the reward is stuff like today where I see all your faces and I know how happy I made people like you. And I was like, wow, Ian Wright, wow. And Saka's the same. He will cripple himself for Arsenal. I believe that it won't just be us rushing himself back. I believe he's probably sat there at the weekend. If he could have hopped over the barrier and went, put me on, boss, with one leg, he'd have done it. He'd have done it because he cares that much. He probably cares too much, if that's a thing. And again, like you said about Odegaard and looking well off, when he got injured, Saka took that armband, took the mantle and ran with it and kept us competitive. And I get now people with Odegaard going, oh, but he hasn't got this. Oh, he hasn't got that around. This player's not around him, James. This player. Sophie, you've already swore, so it doesn't matter. I'm like, fuck off. I'm like, where's Odegaard for himself? Like you said earlier, Kev would have a go at me. Where's your own personal pride to be like, I'm the captain of Arsenal. I better pull something out my arse here for these lot. Because it's gone.
Yeah.
He's got no real, for me at the moment, I'm like, you're shirking responsibility. Okay, he's not like a Aubameyang in that when you lose, you don't see him. At least he fronts up in interviews and he talks well still. But I'm like, yeah, but on the pitch, Odegaard. And again, it could be because he's rushed back. It could be all these other factors that are going on. But I'm like, are you really really are you really being the best that you believe you can be? Because I'm like, if you looked in the mirror, you're not, and you know you're not.
Something's off. You are not that talented to be this off. Because, listen, Whitney Houston can do a duet with Mariah Carey and it could be a hit. But Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey are still selling records without each other. They're talented. They've got the talent. They just go
Whitney
on.
Houston's dead and she's still selling records.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Even better, right? Well, no, because my favorite artist of all time, actually, female artist.
Yeah, God rest her soul. She's top tier.
Oh my God. What a voice. So something's not right. And I can't I go back to something's off. I don't know whether it started at the beginning of the season. Do you remember when, and it feels like 2 years ago, do you remember when Gabriel wasn't playing and there was the rumors about Saudi and then Mikel wouldn't pick him, right? There's the adversity of VAR and refs. I think that we've become a bit of victim culture and we've allowed that to get under our skin as fans and as a team. The captain is a shadow of the player he was. Where's all that talent gone? Where's that player gone from last season? Not there. Hasn't been all season, right? Declan Rice started off, I get it, exhausted, played a lot for England, blah, 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 blue, blue, blue. Was poor for the majority of the season, probably up until November, December time. Timber's gone off the boil, was really good at the beginning of the season. And one of those, wow, kind of, we're so different. We imagine if we had him last season. Saliba has been so off this season. Martinelli lost his mojo this season. I've backed him, defended him. Some people want to sell him. I'm like, Jesus, let's just hold the mayo here. Kai Havertz, off. Even Saka wasn't great, but he was still the shining star. When we're talking about Thomas Partey being one of the better players in this team, we've got problems, right? David Raya, been consistent, had some mishaps here and there. This team hasn't been good all season, no matter who is playing. And the energy hasn't been there. The passion hasn't been there. We've seen it against Manchester City twice. We saw it against Liverpool. We saw it against West Ham away when we battered them, right? We've seen it against Tottenham because it's just the North London derby. But it's inconsistent and there's something not right. It just doesn't feel right. And I don't know if it's because of the way Mikel is so demanding on how they play, his obsession with possession, physical duels, winning duels, asking Kai Havertz to do 10 jobs, when he really should be focused on one. I get this modern game obsession with all of the kind of techie stuff in football. You got to track back. You got to play in triangles. You got to do this. You got to do that. Just can we just play football?
Yeah.
I mean, I may sound like a dinosaur on the tactical side of it, but I was listening to Matt Letizia. He was asked about, if he likes watching football, and he goes, he doesn't enjoy it as much. He's not entertained. And we're talking about one of the best entertainers in the Premier League. And I'm not talking about anything he said, like culturally or whatever. I'm talking about him as a footballer.
I was going to say, I know. Yeah. I get what you mean. A lot of people would go, you're using
before people get offended.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, excuse me, is Jamie Carragher a better barometer as a source for anything? Are you joking?
No, not this, especially this week.
Right.
He
so
really
let's
threw
have it right.
He's won. I would love to. I'll never get invited on that overlap show, Sophie. But I would love to, because the way he talks about certain things, I'd be like, let's get it right here, mate. You threw a coin in my direction because you couldn't control your temper, yet you're having a go at Arsenal being ill-disciplined and everything. Let's have it outright, mate. You had a person putting a score up in the window of a car at you, and you undone your window and you spat in their face.
Yeah,
because you couldn't control your temper. So
he called Rio Ferdinand a clown earlier today.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he I mean, his treatment of Kate Abdo on that show with the comment about her fiance at the time, I thought was just disgusting. And Matt Letizia actually did say in that same piece I heard that because he made comments about him spitting at the girl, that he called
seen
him
that
up
clip a
and
lot.
reamed
Yeah,
him. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, anyway, we digress a little bit, and I'm going to have to run in a little minute. But yeah, I mean, there's a problem. It's not the same. And I think the players are down, losing Bukayo, losing Kai, losing Martinelli. They were able to cope here and there with when Odegaard was gone, Bukayo was still in the team, Kai was still in the team, Martinelli was still there. But it's down to the manager earning 15 million a year to convince them. And he's usually really good at doing that. But something's off for me.
Yeah. I mean, I had all this stuff planned about the game, but I think we've spoken much better about other things. So I'll leave
Which
that
game?
the West Ham one. I had stuff for more of a comprehensive review, but I think we've smashed it with what we've talked about instead. But just quickly, Sophie, I do this every show. I pick a man of the match myself, and I put a graphic up, and then you either agree or disagree with me.
All right.
It was so hard. It was so hard to pick one for this game at the weekend. But for me, I gave it to Leandro Trossard. I thought out of all of them that played, he was the only one that wasn't really below his normal level. I think the last few weeks, he stepped up. He sulked at the start of the season, and his performances dipped with him sulking because he wasn't starting. And I don't know if it's now that he's coming back into the side, he's putting up more of a fight or what have you. But yeah, I thought for me, with what I saw, I was like, you know what? You're the only one who can somewhat walk off with your head high, knowing that you were not way below the level against West Ham. I mean, going back to Odegaard again, you mentioned the bit with the run. There's that free kick, the one that he gives to Sterling, which head loss. But there's the other one where it's right near the end, and it's just before our halfway line. And you're like, get that ball in the bloody box. And he whiffed it to Saliba to go back to Raya, to then Raya to whiff. And I'm like, what you do? I'm like, just you of all people should. To be fair, Saliba and him should have ran into the box themselves and let Raya punt the ball.
Correct.
From that free kick. I was a head loss when I saw that at the weekend. I was like, I'm not going to turn this off. I'll see it all the way through. Because gluttony for punishment and what. But I was like, oh, do you know what? I was close to turning it off. I was very, very close.
I agree with you. Trossard likes to be the main man. He, I'm sure like most players have an ego. And there were a couple of occasions where I think he was let down. James, I think I said to you on the show, right? This obsession, because we've played through Saka for so long, get the ball to Saka, right? We don't have a penetrating pass through the middle anymore. When was the last time we broke a line of defense with a ball through the middle? And we keep crossing it in, hoping a midfielder is going to score as a number 9. We went through a phase where we had no height up front. We had Lacazette with Tierney crossing the ball from the flanks. We need to reinvent ourselves a little bit in this time. And we're not doing that. And I thought Trossard definitely had a couple of occasions where he was let down, where he got himself in good positions and he was in a position to either make the pass or did make the pass and was let down by the end result. So I'm going to say I agree with you.
Awesome. And just quickly as well before we go, I know we did a bit of music a minute ago with Whitney Houston. If I can quote Chris Isaac, because it's a wicked game to play, Nottingham Forest. I've done this as per. Here's my lineup for tomorrow, Soph. It's a better graphic than what it used to be. I don't have to worry about.
It's very nice.
I don't have to worry about FIFA copywriting me anymore, because I used to do the FIFA cards, but now this is a proper app that's come out, so I use this now. I'm bringing Ben White back at right back, Sophie.
Is he ready? Do you think he's ready? Do you think he's ready to start?
He has to be, because, and I put Timber on the left. I can't play, and people are going to go, well, that's a damning indictment of our summer business, James. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I can't play Calafiori there tomorrow, Soph.
Not
Elanga,
against
Elanga and
Elanga.
Aina, they will. Oh my God, they will absolutely tear it.
Yeah.
They'll spin him like a hot point washer. He will be annihilated out there tomorrow. And then the front three again. I feel absolutely horrible. I can't see Sterling getting any joy against. Is it Murillo and is it Milenkovic at the back? Or I can't remember
Yeah.
what their other centre back.
Very
But I'm like,
physical, very good
yeah, I'm like,
players.
you ain't getting nothing out of them two either. So that is, I think, for me, that's the best of a bad bunch. I don't know about yourself, lineup wise, if that's what you feel as well, or if you want to bring someone in and change it. I know you said about Georgie earlier.
Yeah, one of the positives against West Ham was seeing Ben White in a kit again. I thought that was just like, wow, we've really missed you. I've missed you.
Yeah.
It was really a good moment to see him out there.
And
And
he
I'm
nearly scored,
assuming,
nearly saved the day.
yeah, he did.
Well, a draw wouldn't have saved it. Well, yeah, it would have been better than
It
a
still
loss.
would have been better than nothing, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I'm sure they've probably capped him at like 60 minutes or something. And then he can make changes. But you're right about the aggression of the wing backs for Nottingham Forest, the flank players. The centre backs are very physical, very strong. So I understand why you've kept with Marino, even though, bless him. I mean, was he in the box much? He looked confused, right? And again, that's not on him, but maybe they've worked on that in training a little bit. Waneri, hopefully he's fine. He just had a bit of cramping coming off against West Ham. And, maybe I would play Jorginho instead of Odegaard and let him be the creative. He's the splicer. He's the splitter. We've seen him destroy teams with passes, right? Whether it's for Italy, whether it was for Chelsea, whether it was for us in games. Maybe save Odegaard's legs a little bit. And I know people would be like Jorginho for Odegaard, but he can be creative. You
I
don't
just
need him.
think him hooking his captain. I can't see him doing it. I get what you're saying, but I
He
don't
hooked
think it's going to be.
his 100 million pound player and didn't think twice
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, that's in game though. I'm like, before a match to not play his captain. I think that. I mean, that is a huge statement of.
We've got to make a huge statement, and
I
we
agree.
need a creative. We need creativity. Jorginho to me seems the player that could come on, play 60 minutes, spread the ball about a little bit. You're not asking him to do too much defensively. Let Thomas Partey and Rice be the enforcers in what is going to be a tough midfield battle anyway. And bring Odegaard on for the last half hour. Just say like
I know you said about changing earlier as well, and I know you're pressed for time, so I'll try and do this as quick as I can. I think if you took Partey out and you said to Jorginho and Rice, let's go back to the old school of when Granit Xhaka and Partey were together, play you as 2 6s and just have Odegaard as one number 10, and then have Trossard and Nwaneri. Okay, they're wide sort of wingers, but they can also tuck in as like 8s as well. And then just be like, you two just protect, give me the legs. Rice sort of protect Jorginho's legs, but you from deep, both of you, distribute to get it out quick. And I mean, I know I put Timber at left back, but if we're going to do a cross at nauseum game, I think you're right. At least give Kieran Tierney a chance to cross at someone who's 6 foot plus instead of Lacazette, because he's probably the best for it. He's the best defender still, even though he doesn't play, and he's our best crosser of the ball, even though he doesn't play.
Yeah.
That's fact.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he could play Tierney, second half if we need something. He's not going to start those kinds of players. And, he needs to do something because it hasn't been working out for Odegaard, and it's okay to rest your captain, not drop him. You handle that narrative yourself,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I think just I think what is it, 8 o'clock kickoff tomorrow? Might be a 7:45. I can't remember. But I think that hour before the game kicks off, there's no Odegaard in that lineup. even regardless of how he's been, I think you get borderline Chernobyl level of meltdown from
Do you
from
think
Twitter.
so? Because all I've seen on the Twitter sphere is how people want to not drop, they're just saying that something needs to happen, drop him or something.
Mm.
Captains are not immune to starting on the bench.
Oh
They are
no,
not.
no, yeah.
And, people keep telling me it's not the same being captain these days. Back in the day, dropping John Terry or Tony Adams or, you got to try something and bring energy to the creative part of the game. Because I bet our defense don't make similar mistakes in this match as they did against West Ham.
They can't afford to.
Right.
I mean, it's killing me to say it, but Nottingham Forest have a way better front three than Arsenal do.
I mean, Chris
Easily.
Wood's going to be a hand. Exactly. That right now they do.
Well, again, like you said earlier, Chris Wood's a player that years ago I said about. People were like, "Behave yourself."
Yeah,
I'm
we're
like,
snobs.
Bet you wouldn't turn your nose up at Chris Wood now.
All right, we're snobs, James. And until we learn that lesson,
I liked Elanga when he was at Man United. I had people telling me, "Oh, he only runs around. All he does is run around. He doesn't have no end product." I'm like, he looks pretty good. He looks pretty good now.
And that man, Morgan Gibbs White, I tell you, he is having a season.
He's always been a player, though. He's always been a player.
Yeah. Right. I'm not trying to close your show as the host.
No, go for it. If I could hold, I mean, it feels terrible saying it, but yeah, if I could press you for a prediction for tomorrow before you leave. Neil, who comes on here and everything, he is the eternal optimist. When I feel bad, I go to Neil because he cheers me up. He's gone 5-1 to us. Love him.
Oh, geez. I love that optimism. We're away,
Neil,
right?
Neil, if you've got £5, put £5 on it because you'll probably make £1 million back.
We're away?
Yeah.
This is not going to end well for us.
No, I mean, they scored 3 against Newcastle, which is more than I think we've scored against them in 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're losing this game 3-2, 3-1, 3-2.
Yeah, I've done 1-1. I'm not confident at all.
I mean, I hate to predict that, but that's what I feel. So I'm not going to. I'm going to be my honest self.
We lose in clusters, Sophie. That's a Mikel habit, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
We do lose. We lose 2 or 3, and then we bounce back. But yeah, but then again, there's the whole. Now the pressure's off. This is when we'll start playing again. But yeah,
I don't see it.
No. What a way to end.
I look forward to being wrong because there's nothing more I like than to be wrong when I'm feeling a little, on the other side of things.
Yeah. No. Well, Sophie, thank you so much because we've nearly done 1 hour and 20. It's been class. They probably don't need to, but if they want to hear more or they want to read more and what have you, where do they go? Where do they find you, Sophie?
At Highbury Squad. Come find us there. We've got some good content outside of game day stuff, some really good football conversations. James was on last night, so make sure you check out that show. I thought the panel, the people that phoned in and then the panel were really, really fair. And it was respectful, and it just shows you that we can all talk about our team and disagree completely, but have respectful conversations. So go check out James on that. He was great, and he swore.
Again, over and over again. But yes, no, thank you, Sophie. And thanks everybody in the chat. It was obviously with your inclusion, it was a much busier chat room. So I appreciate that as well. But yes, thanks everybody. Take care. And enjoy the game tomorrow. I know it'd be hard, but just try. You might, again, like you said, Ben White coming on gave us a little bit of something. We might have something to cling on to tomorrow. Take care, everybody.